Notice is hereby given that the zoning board of appeals will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, February 27, 2024, on the following applications at the time listed or as soon thereafter as they may be reached. At such time, all interested parties will be given an opportunity to be heard. Application. Oh,
Hello, Joe. You're sitting in for Jordan.
operating
Very good. Nice
difficulties.
to meet you. Go West.
Warm is always good.
Notice is hereby given that the zoning board of appeals of the town of Islip will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, February 27, 2024, on the following applications at the times listed or as soon thereafter as they may be reached. At such time, all interested parties will be given an opportunity to be heard. Application number 104-24, Selena D. Valdez Enriquez, permission to leave driveway having side yard of 1.7 feet instead of required 4 feet, shed having rear yard of 1.9 feet instead of required 2 feet, and patio on side property line not having a required setback of 4 feet. Residence B District, south side of Fairdale Avenue, 295 feet west of Willen Lane, Brentwood.
When your name is called, if you could step up and just give us your name and address for the stenographer, please.
Yes, good evening, everyone, and the members of the board. Thank you for hearing me. So my name is Helenia D. Valdez Enriquez, 46 Federal Drive, Brentwood, New York, 11717. Yes. Yes, sir. Yes. Yes.
How high is the patio?
High is. Oh,
All right.
it's good.
My name is Juan Enriquez, 46 Ferdinand Drive, Brentwood, New York, 11717. Thank you. What was that? It's just gray. It's not even it's just gray.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Application number 105-24, Jose Minaya de la Rosa and Arlette Olivio Perez. Permission to erect second-story addition, 28.5 by 47.1 irregular, two-story addition, 7.1 by 28.5, and portico, leaving front yard of 29.8 feet instead of required 30 feet, resulting in floor area ratio of 28.82% instead of permitted 25%. To install egress window, leaving front yard of 28.7 feet instead of required 30 feet, to leave shed having rear yard of 1.7 feet instead of required 2 feet, and to use dwelling for two-family, family use only pursuant to Islip Town Code, Section 68-419.1. Residence A District, west side of Baldwin Boulevard, 640 feet north of Locust Drive, Bay Shore.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Roxanne Trella, Dynamic Expediting Services, with offices at 231 Islip Avenue, Islip, New York. We are here today seeking variances in connection with a proposed second-story addition and the portico, all requiring the same variance of a front yard of 29.8 feet instead of the required 30, as well as an FAR of 28.82 instead of the permitted 25%. They're also looking to install an egress window to comply with the town code, which will leave a front yard of 28.7 feet instead of the required 30. A small shed, 10 by 12, having a rear yard of 1.7 instead of the required 2, and to establish a two-family, family use only, with the basis being age.
Who is the two-family use for?
Her grandma.
Not occupied with the grandmother?
Yeah.
Questions from the board on this? No? No? Planning, any comments? No? Is there anyone else that would like to be heard on this? You would? Please come forward.
Afternoon. Rena, R-H-I-N-A, Augusto, A-G-O-S-T-O. I live at 1606 Baldwin Boulevard, Bay Shore, New York, 11706. My discrepancy with this is a residential area, of course, and they're all single-family dwellings already. I don't believe that a two-story building will look nice in that area. That's number one. Number two, they're already doing things illegally. I believe they're renting in their basement apartment now for years, since they moved in. Third, they have many vehicles there already. 6 vehicles at night, sometimes 9. How many more people are going to live there?
Have you brought any of these concerns to code enforcement?
To who?
You've spoken to code enforcement in the.
No, I haven't.
The reason you haven't?
You know how sometimes you try and turn your face and not pay attention sometimes and try and be a good neighbor, but unfortunately, now since this has come to my attention, I have to say something.
It's a little hard for us when there is no record of them doing anything wrong. And these
Yes,
are
I
kind of
understand
minor
that.
relaxations.
Yes, I understand that.
You say that there are illegal rentals. What have you seen that?
Basement apartment. Their renters actually came over to us, well, to me and my ex, disputing. We had our fence put up, and I guess the people that were doing the fence, the dirt had went on their vehicle, and they were complaining about that. So we knew that they were coming from the basement apartment, and we know that that's not their family.
What about you said something about vehicles.
Yes, they have a driveway which holds at least 4 vehicles, but they cramp them in 6 vehicles now. And when they have parties in the summertime, because ever since they moved in about 4 or 5 years ago, maybe 6, every summer they have lots of parties.
Well, that's not uncommon.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm not complaining about that.
No, I get it.
But they already have 6 vehicles there in their driveway. I mean, how many more adults are gonna be living there? It's not their just their grandmother. I believe it's their father's wife. They got a lot of people living there now.
You're entitled to quiet enjoyment.
Mm-hmm.
Hear from your-
Yes. Sure, no problem.
Anyone else would like to be heard? Please come up.
Good evening. My name is Edward Wynn. I live at 1609 Broadwood Boulevard. W-I-N-N. What, my first name? Okay. I've been living there for close to 30 years now. And I live right across the street from said property. And I can concur with the young lady who just spoke before me. I was reading the amendment or whatever it is about if they're going to raise the property because of a family member that's disabled. I believe that's what it says. They have enough room. I can concur with the young lady that just spoke. They are renting out the basement apartment. If they need it for a disability of a family member, they can have the basement, or they can extend the garage. I don't see no reason why they have to get a 2-story family. The question to the young man that says over here, do we make any complaints? Okay, we wasn't aware of it, maybe being naive, but don't you have any type of law enforcement going around and checking to see if it's a one-family house and if they are illegally renting out?
They wouldn't go out unless there was a complaint.
Okay, it might be,
It's very hard to drive by and say, oh, that's an illegal apartment there. There needs to be some sort of cooperation from the community to get them pointed on the right track.
I got you right now, but now it's being brought to your attention, even though you might tell me it's a little bit too late, okay? But like I said, my concern is they raising it, and if it's a disability to a family member, they have more than enough space to extend the garage and even their basement apartment.
Mr. Wynn, if I can address your their application to go up is really standard. No reason for denial. Doesn't seem to be no- That is not fair to be granted. But I'm concerned about the way they do and the other concerned that
Okay.
but that I'm concerned of, but what they're asking for is not out of line. There's plenty of-
Okay, so I can ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Will that affect my taxes? Okay, well, like I said, my main,
Unless you want us to raise it.
I would like for you to lower it because I'm a senior citizen. Yeah, so, but again, like I said, the note was brought to my house last week and I read it and my concern was, and like I'm saying, I did a little research and I'm not a lawyer or anything. And it says, you know, if they wanted to do it, it's because of disability of a family member. Correct? Okay, disability or age. But, all right, but they already have the room. If they already have the room, then what is the reason for them going up? Like I said, they can, if that's the case, then you have in the garage and you can extend your garage. You also have a basement apartment, which, like I said, we came here too late to say, is illegal. But,
To be honest with you, just because they're brought the same application doesn't always necessarily mean they, they could be wanting to put on a second story roof, take more room for the family. While they're at it, let's legalize the apartment.
okay,
It's not always tied hand in hand. I don't know what the case is here, but it's not.
I could be naive, you understand? And, if that's what you want to do, then go ahead and buy you a two-story house. I can be again, I'm not a lawyer or anything, but if you want a two-family in a one-family zone, then sell your house and get a two-family house. You know, and I don't know what's the problem with that, because I'm quite sure you're gonna spend like at least 150, maybe even 200 grand to do the renovations that you're talking about. Go buy you another house. Okay, so I guess that's it then, right? That's basically, okay, in the future of other people that I might know because I've been living there so long, and I think that they might be renting out illegal renters, what's the process? Again, I'm naive to this situation, and I'm asking you, what is the process in order for me to do that? Because I can go around and tell you a whole bunch of people that are renting illegal properties. All right, town code enforcement? All right, then thank you very much. I certainly will. Thank you very much for your time.
As far as a basement apartment is concerned, we are not legalizing a basement apartment. The apartment will not be located in the basement. We have filed a compliance permit for the finished basement to be utilized solely as a recreation space. It'll be one open area, no separations, no bedrooms. It will have a bathroom. There will be building inspections. There have been plans drawn up and submitted to the town, and a permit has been applied for. So we will have inspectors come into the house to verify that there is no basement apartment being legalized, or it will not be utilized that way.
You'll consent to that, yes?
Yeah, I have no problem with that. I think that a complaint has to be called in, or we have to find a way to have, unless, do you want a building inspector to verify, or do you want code enforcement to verify? Because the building inspector will be there regardless, because we have an open permit application. So a building inspector will be going there to confirm that the space matches the plans that were submitted and that it's not being utilized as an apartment. But if you want to go, in addition to that, if you want a code enforcement investigator, I could reach out to their department to see if an investigator could be assigned.
Amara.
The certificate of compliance application is filed already, you
It's
said?
filed, it's submitted, it's at the town.
So it's your
it's-
request, you can have the inspection done at this point.
Yes,
I think that would be the easiest, right? Because it's already set in motion.
it's already set in
And
motion.
we'll make sure that they know what to look for.
Yes.
I don't have to fill a complaint now, that's what
If you see something, I would say something.
so just go ahead and fill.
Absolutely.
I have one more question. No problem. Is there intention also, meaning my next door neighbor, is there intention in the future to possibly open a daycare? Did you hear about that? I'm sorry? Question?
I have no knowledge of a proposed daycare.
Any other questions? No? Anyone make a motion then?
Sure.
Motion to grant the application for a period of years as it relates to.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Application's granted.
And there will be an inspection.
So there's going to be an inspection, but it's still grants the application.
The application is granted subject to the inspection from the office. Okay? Thank you.
Okay, and if you see a code enforcement officer, you have to be, you can go talk to him, tell him what you observed.
Application number 106-24, Lewis and Brittany Castronova. Permission to erect second-story addition, leaving side yard of 11.9 feet and 10.7 feet instead of required 14 feet each. Total side yards of 22.6 feet instead of required 28 feet. Floor area ratio of 30% instead of permitted 25%. Second-story deck, leaving side yard of 10.9 feet instead of required 14 feet. To-use dwelling for two-family, family use only pursuant to Islip Town Code Section 68-419.1. To leave patio having side yard of 4.1 feet and rear yard of 4 feet instead of required 6 feet each. Sorry, that was a pool patio. Wall having rear yard of 2.6 feet and side yard of 2.7 feet instead of required 4 feet. And driveway on side property line not having a required setback of 4 feet. Residence B District, north side of East Madison Street, 310.35 feet west of Connecticut Avenue, East Islip.
Good evening again, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Roxanne Trella, Dynamic Expediting Services with offices at 231 Islip Avenue, Islip, New York. So we're here to seeking a variance to erect a second-story addition that has side yards of 11.9 feet and 10.7 feet instead of the required 14 feet. This is on the same side of the property. The dwelling is on a slant, so at the front corner of the house on the garage, that's where the side yard is 10.7. However, it increases to 11.9 once you're at the rear of the dwelling. The other side of the property maintains a increasing slope as well, with a side yard of 17 feet going to 19 feet. The total side yards of 22.6 feet instead of the required 28 is what exists today, and the addition will be in line with the existing dwelling. The addition is also going to increase the FAR to 30% instead of the permitted 25%. And we do have precedent in the area around the corner on Belmore Avenue, approved at 33.53%. And we do have a side yard setback precedent also around the corner on Jefferson Avenue, which is much more deficient than ours. I believe it was around 6-7 feet side yard that was granted by the board. We're also here for a second-story deck, which leaves a side yard of 10.9 feet instead of the required 14 feet. The pool patio at 4.1 on the side and 4 in the rear instead of the required 6. A wall in the rear of the property at 2.6 and 2.7 instead of the required 4. The driveway and to use the dwelling as a two-family, family use only. We have provided all of the documentation. It is the father-in-law that will be moving into the property. Yes, owner occupied, yes. We actually looked at the precedent together, Nick and I, this morning, and the property is like pretty much exactly the same. There are no discrepancies, because I said, is it a one-off or not? You know, were there any special conditions? There wasn't. Right.
What do you have?
As far as precedent, we don't have any additional precedent, but the 10.7 is only one corner because the house is on a slant. So the side yard increases to 11.9. It's existing. It was built that way back when the house was built. It's always been this way.
Yeah, so, yeah, the second story is it's just gonna.
Just goes right in line. It's, no, on the south end, it's 10.7, 11.9. No, that's the way the house was built.
It's Residence B zoning. So until 1995, one-story houses were permitted to have a side yard of only 10 feet. In
They
90
were only one story.
Right. In 1995, we changed it to 14 feet. So all the homes built prior to, and by the way, until 1988, two-story homes were allowed to have only 10 feet in Residence B zoning also. So all the homes that you see in the area could possibly have 10-foot side yards, presuming they were built prior to 1988.
We don't,
74,
What year was this house built?
74 on the CL.
but we don't know the nature and character as it relates to 10-7. Doesn't sound like there's any precedent.
If most of the houses were built prior to 88, there wouldn't be any precedent because they wouldn't have come before the board because it was granted as of right.
No other variances, right? No, E8.
Exist, two-floor at 10-7. I go back to what I originally said.
Well,
If there's a whole bunch of them.
We'd have to research the COs of all the homes within 500 feet to answer your question, because
Well,
we can't just research
COs,
CBA
there are
approval.
no variances.
Right,
Right,
because there
but
wouldn't be approvals.
I get it. Forget about the CO. Are there plenty of homes that are at 10 feet? Or 10-7?
Well, back in my day, when I was a planner, you had to drive the neighborhood to try to determine that. But people don't drive the neighborhood anymore. So what do you think, Nick? Do you think there's houses there that are 2 stories and that have 10-foot side yards?
I would think it's very likely.
There you go.
I think Roxanne maybe should have to go and.
I can do that.
I'd like to know. I mean, it may be easy.
If you would like me to get the COs and surveys within a 500-foot radius,
COs are
I would say it's very likely that most of the neighborhood maintains that sort of setback. But if you want me to give you an exact number, I would have to research. I would have to do research because what we research when we come here is what prior zoning board approvals. But here in this case, there wouldn't be zoning board approvals because the houses were already built and they were permitted as of right. So if for me to give you a number at what actually exists that way, we would have to then look at the COs, the surveys, see when the houses were built, see what setbacks they had when they were built in order for me to give you that number. The houses are pretty close together. It's a very mixed neighborhood with 1-story and 2-story. And again, the 10.7 is on the corner. It goes all the way up to 11.9. Thank you. Have a good night.
Martha and Dan.
Application number 107-24, PKM Associates, permission to install facial sign on rear elevation where not visible from main thoroughfare. Business District, south side of East Main Street, 101.43 feet east of Maple Avenue, through lot to Gibson Street, Bay Shore.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Dean Katsubis. My address is 121 Newbridge Road, Hicksville, New York, 11801. I'm here this evening on behalf of Catholic Health, and we're seeking permission to install a sign located at the rear of the building. And the purpose of this sign, and the variance we're seeking is that the sign does not face the main thoroughfare. This is the back of the building, so the front of the building faces Main Street. The back of the building, where we want to install the sign, faces the parking lot, and it also faces Gibson Street, which runs parallel with the Main Street, East Main Street in that location. The parking lot is a public parking lot, which is utilized by this facility plus for all the shopping and all the stores in that area. So it is public parking. The sign is necessary as, as a patient to the doctor's office can see the sign to direct them to that's where they have to go. There is a walkway along the side of the building which will lead them to the front door for the patients who park in the back.
And you don't need to be relief on the side?
The size is, no.
An application.
Yeah, this is a fairly recent interpretation, in my opinion, by the planning department, that because the sign doesn't face the main thoroughfare is then assumed to be Montauk Highway, because it's obviously trying to appeal to the cars in the Town of Islip parking lot behind it to walk in. That sign that faces Gibson has been determined to need a variance.
Thank you. Okay. I think we got it.
Planning, do you have any comments on this?
It's like you said, it's facing the parking lot. It's not like it's.
Anyone else would like to be heard in this application? No? All right, I'll take a motion then. All in favor? Aye. Application's granted.
Okay, thank you all. Good night.
Explain that to you. I'm going to get the one that go on Park Avenue. Yeah. Application number 108-24, Yalkin Demirkaya. Permission to erect second-story addition, leaving side yards of 12.3 feet and 12.4 feet instead of required 14 feet each, total side yards of 24.7 feet instead of required 28 feet, and floor area ratio of 30% instead of permitted 25%. Residence B District, 281 Cluster, east side of Flint Ridge Drive, 812 feet north of Singing Wood Drive, Holbrook.
Good evening. My name is James Bennington from JMN Architecture. Our office is at 406 North Country Road in St. James. Sure, it's DENNINGTON.
Do you have precedent for us?
No, I do not.
Quick answer.
There is precedent for it. It's
Okay.
Around 12.1.
Any other questions from the board? No. No? Does anyone else would like to be heard in this application? No? Take a motion.
Make a motion, we approve the application.
Second.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Application's granted.
Thank you.
I'm over.
I thought-
Thank you.
Application number 55-24, adjourned from January 30th, 2024, Anthony and Jenna Zito. Permission to erect second-story addition, 25.3 by 40.4, irregular, having height of 28.7 feet instead of permitted 28 feet, side yard of 9.6 feet instead of required 14 feet, total side yards of 23.25 feet instead of required 28 feet, and floor area ratio of 31.1% instead of permitted 25%. To leave egress window having side yard of 6 feet instead of required 14 feet, shed having 8.2 feet behind the front line of the dwelling instead of required 20 feet, and driveway having side yard of 1.2 feet instead of required 4 feet. Residence B District, south side of Langdon Street, 160 feet east of Grimsley Road, Islip.
Hi, I am Laura Coletti from Impact Architecture, 399 Conklin Street in Farmingdale, New York. Coletti. Okay. Ruth Hungerford, who was the original expediter on this, had an emergency this evening and couldn't make it, so I'm here in her stead. We are seeking relief for an existing non-conforming side yards it was adjourned because the calculations for the lot area were incorrect. We included all of the decks and stuff, and that wasn't supposed to be included. So we redid the calculations. We are now at 31.1% FAR. Yes. I'm the architect on the project, so I'm very well aware of the project, but I don't know what happened at the last hearing because I wasn't here. So, oh, okay. So we're all in this together. Okay.
She kind of blamed everything on you.
Yeah, well, that's
Just
okay.
kidding, but we asked her why the numbers were so far off, and she said, "Oh, I'm not sure the architect did that."
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
The FAR 30.
yes. Yes. I believe Ruth had told me that there is a precedent for 30.4 in the area. There is a house across the street that has a second story added similar to this one. Mhm. It's not. We're asking for further relief. And the reason we're asking for this further relief, and if you have the plans in front of you, the architectural features of the front of the house kind of dictate that in and out architectural relief, and those bump outs add to the floor area ratio. In order to bring it to that 30.4 that there is precedent for, we would have to bump the whole thing in 1 foot from either side, from the front and the back, which offsets the bearing, the load path. We would be off of the foundation, off of the load path for the house. Okay. The precedent. I understand. Yeah. Mhm. Okay. The 30.4 I got from Ruth because she said she sat down and talked to somebody. I don't know if it was you. No. And went over it and was told that there was a precedent for 30.4. And so that was our goal. So I did do some math on how to get us to that 30.4, but like I said, we're going to have to offset the walls from the front and the back into the structure. So there was one at 31.9 though? Okay. So there's your precedent. Okay, this is 28.7, and the reason is the architectural features. It's the front reverse gable that brings us to that height. It's not the actual ridge. It's about 7 inches higher. Sure. Okay. Okay. Well, he said there's one and he wasn't sure of the others. Again, I didn't have the conversation with zoning. Only one. Okay. No, okay. I don't know. Ruth called me and told me she had a conversation with somebody at zoning, and that was the target number. Okay. Okay, but there is precedent for 31.9. It's the one. I understand there's only one. But like you said, if you grant this one, then that sets a precedent. So since that one was granted, didn't that set a precedent? Okay. Okay, do you have the address of the one that was 31.9? Would you consider the 30.4? Okay. It just makes the structure a little more difficult because we're moving the load path when we do that. Yeah, I understand that. There is a house right across the street that has a very similar addition, so maybe I'm wondering if that's the 31.9. Okay, if we find other precedent at 30.4, even though there's one that's at 31.9. I know that's a one-off, but then. Okay, so you only want 30. Okay. 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 But we would like to be approved tonight, so. At 30%. I mean, what I can do is push this in and this in, and I can get to the 30. It would mean pushing this in and pushing, to get to the 30.4, which I thought, which Ruth had told me we would only have to go 8 inches. So to get to 30, I'll have to come in a few more inches. Yeah, right. And in your bedrooms as well. Everything's going to have to squish in. And maybe I can squish this in a little bit instead of making it the 1'3" it is. Maybe make it 8 inches. I have 30.4 if I just move everything in 8 inches. Okay. 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 They would be fine with us going to the 30%. I'll have to change them. And the height of 28, I'll have to redo that front gable to get that height to 28. Everything else is the side yards and yeah, it's one of those plastic sheds that can be picked up and moved. Mhm. Okay, thank you so much.
Application number 109-24, John Vincent, permission to erect two-story addition, 25 by 35 irregular, leaving front yard of 28.3 feet instead of required 40 feet, and floor area ratio of 27.83% instead of permitted 25%, and to leave 4-foot fence in sight distance triangle where a maximum of 3 foot is permitted. Residence A District, northeast corner of Richard Avenue and Charles Avenue, Islip Terrace.
I actually am. I'm going to keep that one. Here's some for them. Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. Kathleen McHenry, Long Island Permits, PO Box 5, Stenton, Mauritius, New York, 11934. MCHENRY. Want to just give them your name and your address?
I'm John Vincent. I live at 19 Richard Avenue in Islip Terrace, New York, 11752.
Good evening. We are here before you requesting permission to erect a two-story attached garage addition, having a front yard of 28.3 instead of the required 40, and resulting in an FAR of 27.83 instead of the required 25, and to leave a 4-foot fence in the site triangle. The proposed garage and attic space above are not to be heated, habitable, or even finished space. My client purchased the property in 2007 with his wife, who has since passed away. After the loss of his wife, he's really trying to stay local and remain a resident of the town of Islip, but his house is small, especially in comparison to most of the houses in the area. And although he does love the home, it lacks storage space and a garage. It is Mr. Vincent's hope that if the board looks favorably on this application, he will be able to store his vehicles properly and out of the elements, clean up the property and put away all of the yard equipment and items being stored around the backyard. And above the garage will be attic storage space he will utilize for Christmas decorations, important documents, etc. We are on a small corner lot, which does not leave many alternatives regarding compliance with the front yard setback. If it were to be pushed back any further, my client would lose what little backyard he has. And as an owner of a large dog, it is just not feasible. We are not only keeping with the current front foundation of the line of the house, but in fact, pushing it back a few feet further even. For the record, I'd like to state that my client's plan is to reconfigure the fence after construction, and he has no issue complying with the town's requirement for site distance triangle. We do request, however, that the fencing be allowed to remain up during construction. Again, Mr. Vincent is an owner of large dog breeds and has had a pretty extensive history with the neighborhood children, taunting the dogs and purposely letting them out of the gate. I've submitted for the board's consideration pictures of the subject property and its existing condition, as well as pictures of some surrounding properties in the neighborhood. I have not checked to see if these homes have in fact been granted a variance by the board, and I can do that if the board wishes so. The FAR we are seeking is 28.5, where 28.3, where 25 is required. I was before this board for a case in Brentwood, and we were granted 28%. I also had another one on Willoughby Street a few years ago that I believe we were over 30, again, not Islip Terrace. To add, give me 1 second, I apologize. Any lots in my client's immediate vicinity do not hold 40-foot front yard setbacks. If they do, they're few and far between. Mostly because a lot of the lots in Islip Terrace are small, like Mr. Vincent's. Based on the character of the neighborhood and Islip Terrace itself as a whole, I believe the relief we are seeking is minor, and that if granted, we would be in fact keeping with the nature and characteristics of the surrounding properties. I welcome any questions the board has. It's stockade in the back and chain link in the front. But again, all of that is going to be ripped down and reconfigured hopefully once the construction is done.
What I was asking you to communicate with planning about. The chain link fence is reflected in the call of the meeting.
And I believe they talked
Chain
yesterday.
links Could be gone out of there.
Like it was already partially down.
Yeah, I started doing this a while ago, and I'm like, you know what, it keeps stragglers from laying on my front lawn, so.
So I don't think the stockade fence will be addressed by building when you seek your building permit.
Okay.
And you're saying that by the time you build it, obviously it would be addressed. You'd have to submit an as-built survey. It
Correct.
would have to be down.
Understood.
Then you want us to deny the portion regarding the fence?
Yeah, the fence, we're okay with the denial of the fence because again, it's going to come down.
Any questions from the board on anything else on this?
No.
Planning, any comments?
No, no other comments.
Anyone else like to be heard in this application? No? All right, take a motion.
You,
Oh, me, okay. Then I'll make a motion that we deny somebody.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Have a great evening, everyone. Thanks.
application number 110-24, Michael Carney, permission to leave above-ground pool having rear yard of 5.1 feet instead of required 10 feet, and pool deck having rear yard of 8 feet instead of required 10 feet. Residence A District, south side of Mark Drive, 175.61 feet west of Grundy Avenue, Holbrook.
Good evening, everybody. Michael Carney, 36 Mark Drive, Holbrook, New York, 11741.
Good evening, Mr. Carney.
Good evening.
So you just here on the pool and the deck?
Yes.
Yeah, they have it. So they're usually for the above-ground pools, that's what I'm saying.
Any questions from the board on this? Planning, any comments?
Oh, did you know this?
Mary, you're being.
Since you have Holbrook. Oh, yeah.
Question.
Oh, question for me?
One year. 1 year I did it. I put it up last summer. That pool company and I had a pool company do it. They did it. They're in Centereach, I believe they are. Island Recreation. They told me 4 feet. They told me the pool has to be 4 feet off the deck, off the fence line. They told me 4 feet. So then when I did it an extra foot, I went to 5 feet. I said, okay, I got an extra foot, so it shouldn't be a problem. And then when they came to do the inspection, they told me you're not even close. I had no idea. I'm good on the right side of the backyard. I'm good, but to the rear yard, yeah, that's me. That's my garage. I have a little 4x8. Right there, that little square, I have a little. Oh, that's an in-ground pool behind me. Yeah, he's right behind me in the in-ground pool. I don't know anything. Okay. Right. That's fine. Yeah, well, my rule is when they use it, when there's one summer and they don't use the pool, it's coming off anyway, because that's, so. As soon as my son is probably 18, he's probably gone, so. Excellent. Thank you very much. Have a nice evening, everybody. Thank you.
Application number 111-24, Melvit Seal, Nurgan Turan Seal, Kamal, and Nerman Turan. Permission to establish accessory apartment pursuant to Islip Town Code Section 68-602, leaving second visible front entrance instead of permitted one pursuant to Section 68-610B, and to leave shed having side yard of 2.7 feet instead of required 4 feet. Residence A District, southwest corner of Abbey Lane and Spur Drive South, Bay Shore.
Good evening, my name is Mehmet Akta, AKDAG, 76 West 2nd Street, Deer Park, New York. This is my friend and client.
Good evening. This is Mevlut Sil, 16 Abbey Lane, is Bay Shore 11706. Thank you.
And we're asking from the board permission to establish an accessory apartment and also leave the shed with a setback of 2.7 instead of the 4.
Who is the owner of the property? By yourself?
Him, his wife, and his in-laws.
Who lives at the property?
All 4 people.
All 4 owners live there?
Yes,
And then the accessory apartment will be?
for the in-laws.
Oh, yeah.
What about the front door?
That's the attached garage was converted into the accessory apartment. And we have a process of going through the compliance permit. And this was done 4 years ago, over 4 years ago when they bought the house.
The town code prohibits 2 visible front doors.
Put that door on the side?
Yan tarafa koyabilir miyiz diye soruyorlar. It's possible.
But you can't, you don't grant 2 front doors. They have to.
What about the back?
That's fine too.
As long as it's not the front?
Put it on the roof, anywhere you want.
Is there a precedence where we can have 2 doors in it?
On the precedent where I was sitting here for 20 minutes. No, there's no precedent.
So the intent of the ordinance when it was adopted in 1992 was, it was very careful to try to have houses not look like 2-family homes.
Right.
So one of the things specifically listed is not have 2 visible front doors.
Okay.
So we'll deny that portion of the application regarding the front door. Everything else is okay. Anybody else like to be heard in this application? Sorry, planning, do you have any comments on it? I'll take a motion on this. Are you sure?
Sure. Motion to deny that portion of the application relating to second front door, second visible front entrance, and to grant the accessory apartment for a period of 3 years, and to grant the shed.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, good evening.
Application number 112-24, Peter and Ann Henry. Permission to leave pool patio having side yard of 1.1 feet instead of required 6 feet. Pergola having side yard of 3.6 feet instead of required 4 feet. And rear yard landscaping of 28.7% instead of permitted 40%. I'm sorry, required 40%. Residence A District, northwest corner of Canby Court and Alinda Avenue, West Islip.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Peter Henry at 4 Canby Court, West Islip, New York, 11795.
Okay, so the big issue here is the rear yard landscaping. Planning, what do we have?
We don't have any precedent for the rear landscaping, but let me, it's weird situation. So what happened here is that since they're a corner lot, the second front yard doesn't actually, even though it's all behind the house. And since the patio is all offset on the one side of the house, it's kind of pushing it pretty severely. I think zoning did a calculation, if the second front yard were to be counted, they're about 50. Well above what they would actually.
Okay.
So there's no precedence, but they're being penalized for being a corner lot, whereas if they were interior, they would be.
Can you write on that? Yeah. Chris, can you write on that?
Mr. Damasio.
Joe?
Mr. Damasio. Oh, Joe.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I know it's getting late.
Chris is right
Oh, can you write on that?
So what we're asking is if you can distinguish it in the decision, the fact that the side yard helped bring
Because
it.
it's a corner lot. That's not,
Yeah.
we don't want to see them.
Is there anyone else like to be heard in this application?
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Application number 113-24, Brian Steinberg, permission to erect second-story addition, 15 by 25 irregular, and two-story addition, 3.5 by 16, leaving rear yard of 16.5 feet instead of required 25 feet, to establish accessory apartment pursuant to Islip Town Code Section 68-602, and to leave 6-foot fence having front yard of 10 feet instead of required 15 feet. Residence AA District, 278 Cluster, northeast corner of Terry Road and Town Line Court, Hopog.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Brian Steinberg, and I'm the owner of the property at 585 Terry Road in Hopog. I've owned this property since 1999. I'm here today with my wife Elaine, and we are seeking permission to establish an accessory apartment with a floor area of 462 square feet. Right over there? She didn't want to come up. Where was I? Having a floor area of 462 square feet with an FAR of 19.49%. In support of this, I'm requesting permission to erect a second-story addition, having a rear yard setback of 16 feet 5 inches instead of the required 25 feet. Of note, my home is already non-conforming, and the setback on the northeast side is currently 16 feet 5 inches for both floors. The new enclosed staircase and patio with roof over lines up with the existing roof and will be flush with the back of the house and not any closer to the property line than what already exists. Additionally, and unrelated to the construction but called out by zoning, is a fence greater than 4 feet in height along Terry Road that is set back 10 feet instead of the required 15 feet. When I purchased this home, there was a wooden fence in this location that was within arm's length of the sidewalk on Terry Road. In 2010, I built a swimming pool and replaced the wooden fence with a vinyl one. The fence along Terry Road was not called out by zoning back then when the variances I needed for the pool were identified and ultimately approved. My pool installation was completed, but during the final inspection, the fence setback issue was identified. And in order to pass final inspection, I had the fence moved 15 feet. The inspector returned and my final inspection was approved. And at that time, until just a few months ago, I thought my fence was compliant. I have now come to learn that originally the fence was actually 5 feet over the property line. I never knew this. So after moving it 15 feet, it still left it 5 feet short of the setback requirement. That was nearly 15 years ago. I would like to point out that beyond the fence line on Terry Road is all wooded, undeveloped land up to Town Line Road, and that in that undeveloped land, I believe, is a recharge basin for the stormwater from the street drains of the area. Additionally, the fence is now 14 feet from the sidewalk and 20 feet from the curb. In my application papers is a picture of the subject fence. I'm requesting permission to maintain the fence in this location as is. Thank you for your consideration. I'm ready to answer your questions. It's for our daughter. Well, she's my new wife. It's our daughter. My stepdaughter. So I can tell you that it actually was called a second front yard for a time. And the address of the house, as far as the gas company is concerned, is 3 Town Line Court. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Application number 114-24, Robert Onofriati. Permission to leave one-story addition, 28 by 44.5 irregular, having side yard of 9 feet instead of required 14 feet, patio having side yard of 3.5 feet instead of required 4 feet, and driveway having side yard of 3 feet instead of required 4 feet, and front yard occupancy of 55% instead of permitted 40%. Residence A District, west side of Maltz Avenue, 600 feet north of Garden Street, West Islip.
Good evening. My name is Linda Secafico. Good evening. My name is Linda Secafico from LES Associates. My office is at 500 Montauk Highway in Mauritius, and I represent the applicant, Robert Onofriati. We're here to close out a permit that was issued for 1886 for a rare addition, and I believe the individuals that owned the property at that time, they went a little crazy and they made the addition larger. And they never went to the town to correct it. We're here to correct it, and therefore we're looking for permission for the one-story addition, 28 by 44.5. According to law,
Correct it, you want a variance.
right,
Correct it, you'd move it.
well, it's part of the house, I can't move it.
Need permit.
Oh, okay. So Ms. Larson said that we needed to come in front of the board to try to correct this and get a CO for everything that's existing.
As far as the side, there's a lot of residents in this neighborhood around this. All of those are existing, and of note, any ones that were asking to go further or not involved this standing, this is very not. As far as front yard occupancy,
We're gonna ask, okay. Front yard occupancy? Front yard? You stand in the front yard? Front yard. Any other questions? What can they do about the front yard occupancy of 55%? Bring that down somehow?
They would not be able to bring it down. It's all built already.
No, the front yard occupancy.
Excuse me?
Front yard occupancy.
This is designed to
Yet that they can't move the house.
Okay.
They can make amends on the front yard.
Excuse me? I don't.
Yeah, I'm the owner. Yeah, it's Robert Onofriati, 58 Alice Road, West Islip, New York, 11795. That's the way it was when, it's been like that for who knows how long. Right. So what if we're asking for variance to keep it? Right. So would we have to remove some of the blacktop? Is that, and put grass? And you're asking for how much? To bring, what was that? I'm sorry?
You're at 55% need.
15% you need removed.
That's all.
They're talking about the driveway here. They're talking about removing this.
Okay.
It's not like, you know. The area on the side of the house.
Really what you want to do first. Want all this to be addressed.
Well, that was a circle driveway that's been there.
You gotta get it down.
Right. Could someone come out and show me what 40% would be?
No, we'll calculate it. The surveyor will calculate it.
All right, we'll take care of it, all right. I mean, all right. Joe, what does he drink? All right, I guess I'm gonna have to do that.
You have no choice.
I know. Okay. Thank
Okay,
you.
do you, does the board need updated survey showing the correction? Do you need an updated survey showing the correction?
You have to get the addition inspected, right? Has that already taken place?
No
There's no
inspections.
addition. What do you mean the addition?
Or didn't we just,
Yeah,
didn't we just grant permission to leave a one-story addition to this dwelling?
Yeah,
Yes, we did, and a patio, having side yard of 3.5 instead of, so someone's gonna come out and inspect that.
okay.
All right, not a problem.
I think it's been like that since '85.
Hold on one second. That's why I was asking. So we're gonna
Okay.
strike our grant.
Okay, want me to read? Okay, yes. To the goodness of Mr. McCabe's heart, reminded us that we have been granting 42% instead of 40. So you can thank him. Part of it. Yeah. So I'll make an amended motion. The motion will be, we deny so much of the application, 5%, and grant 42%, and grant the handicap.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Application is granted.
Application number 115-24. I see what you meant. Yeah, I thought you were. MD Lutfar Raman Beperdy, Jobita Khatun, and MD Joynel Abedin. Permission to establish accessory apartment pursuant to Town Code Section 68-602, having gross floor area of 850 square feet instead of permitted 800 square feet. Residence A District, east side of Pine Avenue, 100 feet north of 3rd Street, Ronkonkoma.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Len Crick, Island-wide Permit Services, office at 86 Center Street in Ronkonkoma. Also with me is MD Beperdy.
Good evening. My name is MD Lutfar Rahman Beperdy, 2163 Pine Avenue, Ronkonkoma. BEPARY.
And his wife, Jobita.
Hi, my name is Jobeta Khatun, 2163 Pine Avenue, Ronkonkoma, NI 11779.
Members, upon purchasing their property at 2163 Pine Avenue, Mr. Beperdy and his family wanted to complete the finished basement work started by previous owners and establish an accessory apartment for a relative. At 850 square feet, the apartment is slightly over the permitted 800 square feet, although it is part of a fairly large house totaling close to 4,000 square feet. As a result, the apartment accounts for roughly about 25% of the total size of the house. Any questions?
Questions at this time? Planning, any comments on the 850 square feet? Anyone else would like to be heard in this application?
Make a motion, we approve the application.
Second.
In favor? Aye.
You gotta do 40%.
There you go.
Thank you.
Florida, I raised it.
Application number 116-24, Danielle and William Poor. Permission to erect one-story and second-story additions, leaving side yard of 13.8 feet instead of required 14 feet, and total side yards of 21.8 feet instead of required 28 feet, to leave awning 3 foot by 4 foot, having side yard of 11 feet instead of required 14 feet, chicken coop having side yard of 2 feet instead of required 10 feet, and driveway onside property line not having required setback of 4 feet. Residence B District, south side of Rose Street, 375 feet east of Lincoln Avenue, Sayville.
Mr. Chairman, member of the boards, Len Crick again, Island-wide Permit Services. After residing at 10 Rose Street for over 12 years, the boards have realized that they do need more room in the house. The proposed one-story addition to the northwest corner of the house expands their dining room. The second-story addition will expand the existing half-story to a full second floor. Since the additions would be building upwards rather than out, we would maintain the same 13.8 side yard and 21.8 total side yards currently held by the house. As for the existing structures, the side awning is a minor 12 square feet, while the chicken coop is relatively small, but it can be moved to conform. The driveway is on the side property line, but I do have a survey originally dated July 25th, 1975, showing the driveway in the same location. Yes. We can. Okay.
Anyone else like to be heard in this application?
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Application number 117-24, Anthony and Joanne Marasek. Permission to erect two-story dwelling, leaving floor area ratio of 27.55% instead of permitted 25%, and to exceed compensating excavation provision 68-442A3C by proposing 190 cubic yards of fill in the floodplain. Residence B District, south side of Westgate Drive, 200 feet east of Green Avenue, Sayville.
Good evening. I'm Michael Dunn, the architect for Marichix at 256 Orinoco Drive in Brightwaters, New York, 11718. So they plan on building a new two-story house, and we were asking for an FAR of 27.55 instead of the 25. And we do have DEC approval and health department approval. So in order to get the new IA system in is part of the reason we have the fill we need for the site, as well as drainage for the building that engineering is requiring us to add. So that's why we're asking for the 190 cubic yards.
Glenn, do you have any comments on this?
Yes, so we, for a brief time, I recall, had an issue where we never got any compensation.
Right.
And fill in the floodplain. Since that time, we have had an initial meeting with many.
Anyone else like to be heard in this application?
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good night.
Application number 118-24, Karen and Arthur Herlihy Jr. Permission to erect one-story addition and decks, leaving side yard of 13.8 feet instead of required 14 feet each, to leave patio having side yard of 1.75 feet and rear yard of 1.25 feet, and driveway having side yard of 1.9 feet instead of required 4 feet each. Residence A District, east side of Renee Drive, 430.5 feet south of Lori Lane, Bayport.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. Mel Gonzalez, architect at MIG Architects, PLLC, 200 Corporate Plaza, Suite A102, Islanda, New York, 11749. I'm here representing Art Herlihy and Karen Herlihy. As stated, the variance as far as the addition that we're adding is in line with the south wall of the existing structure. And what we're requesting is 2 3/8 of an inch in variance for that portion of the addition. Where 14 is required, we're asking for 13.8. The other items are the poured concrete slab, which is to the southeast portion of the property. You'll see in the photographs. It's an existing concrete pad at grade. And the other variance is for the driveway and the Belgian block curb, which is on the north side of the property along the driveway. Everything else complies in terms of the FAR and lot coverage. Yes, yes, we do. No.
You get used to it. You know, I lived in Brooklyn for 30 years next to JFK, so airplanes are, JFK is, you know, the airplanes are a lot smaller, bigger. Well, you can see there is an airplane there now, but for the most part, the hangars are up on the north end. Very high end too, all vintage airplanes. Way out of my league.
Anyone else like to be heard in this application?
Thank you very much.
Application number 119-24, Above All Storefronts, Inc. Permission to erect two-story industrial building, 80.8 by 308 irregular, leaving front yard of 45 feet and rear yard of 25 feet instead of required 50 feet each. Industrial 1 District, south side of Motor Parkway, 449.76 feet east of Wheeler Road, Central Islip.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board, Madam Secretary.
Thank you.
The application is to erect a two-story building. As per the call of the meeting, front yard of 45 feet where 50 is required and a rear yard of 25 feet, also where 50 is required, but that's due to the fact that the southern property adjoins residentially zoned property. All of the required setbacks and dimensional criteria are met and rather exceeded. Required parking calculations are met. Building height, less than 30 feet. Landscape percentages of 25 or 45%, required is 25%. Landscape in the front yard required is 12.5%. The applicant's providing 26.8%. This application is part of a change of zone from a business 1 to industrial 1 process. Planning board conducted a public hearing on August 16, 2023. The board supported the change of zone and the site plan is presented to the board, specifically the requested relief that we have before you. And the town board also conducted its hearing following that on November 30th, 2023, again supporting the change of zone and the site plan is presented to this board. Insofar as the rear yard is concerned, section 68-349A of the town code states that buildings erected in industrial 1 zone have a rear yard of not less than 25 feet, except if the building exceeds 35 feet in height or where 50 feet is required because of adjoining residential uses or district. The property to the south is not a residential use, but it is residentially zoned. It is owned by St. John of God of Rockville Center as a cemetery, an operational cemetery. It's important to note that the cemetery, again, is not a permitted use within the residential A, nor has it received a special use permit from the planning board. So it is a pre-existing non-conforming use there, but again, it is zoned AAA residence. The initial draft of the site plan, as presented to the planning board back in 2023, showed a 16-foot rear yard setback. That was in part due to the history of the process of this property. In June of 1988, the town board granted a change of zone of this property from residential AAA to a business 1. And in that, there were covenants and restrictions that were recorded with the Suffolk County Clerk's Office in Library 108-829, page 447, that granted a relaxation of 25 feet to actually 15 feet to the south. So that's where we were starting. We came in at 16 feet. However, at the first hearing, the planning board hearing, St. John of God of Rockville Center opposed to 16 feet, asked if we would strive to maybe get back to the 25 feet as was previously granted. And so that's how we got back to the 25 feet. Obviously, that 25-foot buffer will be all full of landscaping, and I'll touch on that in a bit. The planning board conditions pursuant to the change of zone approved the 25-foot setback, but asked that we put in mature giant arborvitae, Leland cypress in a staggered area along that whole property line. It should also be noted that the cemetery has a 15 to 20-foot asphalt perimeter road on that northern property line of their property that abuts to the subject property. So there's additional setback relief there. As for a rear yard setback precedent, application 864-18 dated May 8th, 2019, granted St. John of God of Rockville Center a rear yard setback of 18 and a half from the required 40 feet for an existing building. That was a relief of approximately 53%. And the address of that property is the southern property, 115 Wheeler Road. Insofar as the front yard is concerned, Town Code Section 68-349A requires that all permitted buildings have a front yard of 50 feet. Because the owner of the cemetery, St. John of God, requested that we increase the proposed rear yard setback back to the 25 feet, and together with the odd shape of the property and the constraints, the dimensions, planning staff suggested that we move the property, up to the 25-foot setback off the rear and move it a little bit to the north. And according to planning staff and reviewing all of the properties that were improved east and west of the subject property within a reasonable distance on Motor Parkway, that they felt that 45 feet would be reasonable front yard setback. Many of the properties enjoy some sort of a front yard setback relief. As far as precedents within 500 feet, let's call 10 or 15 properties to the north. Over the median, I don't know if you can see in the picture there, but there's a median between Motor Parkway and Bridge Road. That's probably 30 feet, maybe more in width. That provides a great buffer as well. But the precedent as far as front yard setbacks, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that I'd like to mention off real quick. Application 864-18 dated May 2019, granted St. John of God of Rockville Center, front yard setback of 55. Instead of the required 330 for a telecommunications tower. I guess they had a tower in the rear of their property. That was an 83% relaxation relief. Application 668-08 dated December of 2008, front yard setback of 5 feet instead of required 50. That's the through lot that's directly across the across Motor Parkway. There's several through lots there. It's a home. Yes, it's a through lot, Bill, no, it's not. But this is all I've got as far as precedent. Again, 446-70 application, front yard set, 446-70, front yard setback of 15 feet instead of required 25 feet for gas pump island. That's the BP station that's in the northwest corner of Wheeler Road and Motor Parkway. Yeah, you got to travel a little bit to the west. There you go, northwest corner. Nope, that's Bank of America right there. Yep. Yep. Gas pump island. Yep. Application 658-75. This is 24 Marlowe Lane. That's right across the street, basically, granting front yard setback of 45 feet instead of required 50. So that's more on point. But I think when you that where the cursor is, that is Bank of America. Oh, it was Marlowe Lane, 24 Marlowe Lane, right north of the subject property.
What is it, a house?
Yes, yes. Everything north are residential, north of the median of Bridge Road. It's not Motor Parkway because of that median. Is predominantly residential.
Mr. Weisbrot, jumps off the page at me at least. The town wants a 50-foot setback buffer when it is near residential, which makes sense to me. They want to protect the residents.
Mm-hmm.
My question is, the 45 is relatively minimal. That's a 50% relaxation. other than the fact that your client wants to erect a larger building, what is the rationale that we should grant the 50%?
I think, well, the rationale is in line with the town board decision of 1988, where they saw that there was a cemetery, albeit it's a residential district, it's not a residential use. So they granted that application in doing the change of zone, 25-foot setback.
But for what?
What was the purpose? Well, because you're not going to see.
What were they building an
What was it you
industrial
proposed?
building?
It was a business, yeah, it was an office building. No, they didn't move forward with it. They didn't move forward with it.
So I guess, so we can make a record here, what is the predominant reason why we should grant the 50%? Seems a little steep when the town board, whenever they passed that section of the code saying, no, we want a 50-foot buffer, they had residents in mind. Why do we just say, well, we're just going to have it because we like Randall?
Well, because they're talking about in the code, residential uses, residential districts. That's, I think it's more of the use is what they're trying to protect. In this case, even though it's a cemetery and it's zoned residential, the cemetery is not a residential use. So when you look at the 50-foot setback, it talks about uses and districts. Again, residential zone property, but it's not a residential use. The town board in 1988 granted a 25-yard setback. And the board also granted St. John of God of Rockville Center a 53% relaxation. You will, it is unlikely that you will see a residential use of the property to the south. So I think that was the intent of the town board in granting the relief back in '88.
So you're saying it's residential use, but it's a cemetery there. I don't know that you like.
Right, and it's a pre-existing non-conforming use. So it's not a permitted use, even what they have there. So eventually, if they look to expand or legalize the property, they're going to have to either come in for a planning board special use permit or a change of zone. General services district is likely where a cemetery would be approved for, which makes it moot, to be honest with you. And with the additional screening and obviously the constraints of the property, it's it doesn't work any other way. And the neighbors have come out in the planning board hearing. They supported the development of the property. They asked the applicant to provide additional screening to the north, which they did. And the applicant moved his office from town of Brookhaven to town of Islip. His main office is on Gilpin Avenue. He's probably the most successful IDA project the town of Islip has seen. And this particular building is serving a purpose of relocating a building in Brookhaven to the town of Islip. When he first moved, he employed 100 employees. He's up to 250 now. So I think it would be a great asset to accommodate this application. From the hearing that we had, they asked for additional screening in the median, believe it or not, which the applicant has provided and is set forth in the CNRs that planning has proposed. And St. John of God has requested that we increase the setback from 16 to 25, which we have. So I think we've met the concerns of the public, and again, it exceeds, considering the shape of the property, all other dimensional criteria. I think they did a really good job, and you got to be creative. And I think Mr. Gonzalez here is definitely an extremely creative. You're welcome.
It's de minimis. De minimis. Flat. Flat will do. It's flat, it's not a big deal. Okay, well.
Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard in this?
Edith Tackenberg, Tackenberg, 351 Bridge Road, Hopog, New York. You asked if any of the neighbors had been notified about this building. No, they were not. I happened to see it coming up. Okay, but nobody was notified about it until I saw something. So I try to get some of the neighbors together. We did come to the hearing. We did ask for some relief. I guess the buffer there is very thin. So I did ask if they could put a few more buffer, either a berm in front of the building or something, so that our houses don't look directly at the building. I don't know what happened at the town board meeting, but I just wanted to make that clear that a lot of people didn't show up because they didn't know about it. Is that something I can see or get a copy of? Okay, so I have to go to the town and get it. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your help.
If I may, I actually have Edith and Warren's information from the prior hearing, and we did put in the additional screening language of the median at their request. So that is addressed, yeah.
Very much.
Application number 120-24, Jonathan Mata, permission to erect two-story dwelling in cabana having wetlands yield of 0.58 feet instead of required 1, leaving floor area ratio of 26.2% instead of permitted 25%, and to exceed compensating excavation provision 68-442A3C by proposing 739 cubic yards of fill in the floodplain. Residence AA District, east side of Biltmore Avenue Extension, 1,600 feet west of Twin River Drive, Oakdale.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Raymond Justo, I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Jonathan Mata. Mr. Mata is here tonight, as well as Jacqueline Peranto from Key Civil Engineering. She'll be doing most of the heavy lifting tonight. I know you've had a long night. We're going to try to make this as brief as possible. Our client purchased this property. It's not an investment property. It's for his own personal use. It's going to be his primary residence. He purchased the house in May of 2020, almost 4 years ago now. During that 4-year period, he's had a lengthy and arduous application process with the New York State DEC. He has the site plan you basically see in front of you has been approved by the DEC. If you have any questions on that, Jackie can answer those questions as well. He's had bulkhead permits, and he actually demolished the existing residence that was on the property. So this would be the final step in a 4-year process to finally start building his dream home. If the board wants to see this, I have a picture of the prior residence, and it was pretty much an eyesore. And I understand there were several boats always in front of the house. And I also asked our client to have his architect prepare rendering of the house that is to be constructed. And you can hand those out and pass that around. Sure. Sure. Well, I'd just like to, if I may, unless you want to just get back to me, I did want to indicate, and Jackie's going to go over all that. She's very good at this. We have received consents from two neighbors, one neighbor directly adjoining to the west, as well as a neighbor 2 houses down just to the east of the property. And we did meet with the neighbor adjacent just to the east of the property tonight. They're here in the audience. I believe that we've worked out all their concerns with them tonight, but sure. Okay. Sure.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. My name is Jacqueline Pronto. I'm principal at Key Civil Engineering located at 664 Blue Point Road in Holtsville, New York, representing the property owner, Jonathan Moda. As indicated, our property is located on the east side of Biltmore Avenue with our rear lot line along Millbrook. There's a current bulkhead that we have located along the easternly property line. The parcel is zoned AA residence, and it does permit the construction of a single-family residence. The property is 0.53 acres or 23,167 square feet, and that excludes the land underwater as defined by the town code. The property is also located in the flood zone AE5. We're here tonight to seek 3 variances. Again, the property is abutting the Millbrook, which is the wetlands, and it's also located in AE5, which presents some difficulties with us in complying with these 3 code items. The first one that I just want to mention before we get into the fill of the flood zone is area density. So because of the bulkhead along the rear of the property, whenever a property is within 100 foot of a wetland boundary, the town requires us to calculate the number of dwelling units which a parcel can yield. So the rear property line is abutting Millbrook as a bulkhead. In our opinion, and as deemed by the DEC, that is the limit of wetlands. However, they do have jurisdiction 100 foot landward of that bulkhead. And so when we prepare the calculation as stated in the town code, it results in us calculating 0.58 dwelling units is permitted. We basically need to deduct that 100-foot area from our calculation when we perform that yield. So that's one of the variances. A 1 dwelling is a minimum, and we're at 0.58. So that's one of the variances that we're seeking tonight. And again, that was from code section 68-485B4. The second item that we're, yes. So it's a wetland yield calculation. So in the town code, it basically says that whenever a property is abutting wetlands, you need to perform a calculation of which you will deduct the area, the 100-foot wetland area, buffer area out of your number, and you'll just use your adjoining land area. You divide it by 80,000 square feet. You then, use the upland area divided by the minimum lot area required in your zone, and you result in a number. If that number is less than 1, then we need to seek a variance from this board. Correct.
That's correct. It does. I would say that every parcel along this roadway is of similar condition. Because every single one of these parcels has a frontage along the Mill Brook. So if you take 100-foot offset into those properties, you're deducting that from everybody. So I don't know the dates of the construction of those. And we have obtained our approvals from DEC to construct the home with the coverage that's shown on these drawings. The DEC. No, that's not an item that they look at. It's regardless of the size of the house. It's more of, yeah, correct. It's always a 100-foot setback from that line. And I think the jut-in for the boat dock that this parcel has might pull that line just slightly in from the other parcels. Wow. Yeah. Right. In fact, there's no actual wetland plant material on the property itself. No, the minimum lot size is 20,000 square foot for this zone, and we do exceed it. We're 22 and change.
Because it's the buffer that is adjacent to the natural shoreline that's on the adjacent property that triggers the wetlands consideration, isn't it? Because
No, it's the bulkhead along Mill Brook.
Okay.
So the DEC only cares about it at, sort of a natural thing, but measure it for the purposes of yield from the water there and the bulkhead of the property.
Yes. I questioned Tanner a couple of times on it. So.
Okay, but we heard a similar application earlier that didn't do the same, but
Yeah, because I agree with what Nick's saying and that the bulkhead is a defined limit. So I argued with Tanner that I have no 100-foot upland, like there is no buffer to my wetlands because that is my limit.
I've seen it unfortunately applied when it's the adjacent property's natural shoreline, which we're looking at.
Right.
The adjacent property has natural shoreline, so that would be DEC regulated wetland.
That would come up, yeah, if it's the DEC regulated. In this case, they have a DEC permit, so that actually probably did.
Right.
Regardless if the DEC is needed or not, it's not.
Mm.
No DEC permit, if they say there's no.
Okay.
It's still apply.
All right.
So they bought the property, the applicant bought the property, hoping with grant.
Mm-hmm.
That a little bit of a Hail Mary?
Well, I think to Nick's point, a house existed on the property. So
I'm sorry.
a house has always existed on that property. So, whether if the home was being renovated, it could be looked at differently than being a raise and rebuild. So I think that's,
A little leap of faith. I buy it and then I hope I spend $500,000.
hopes and dreams. No, I guess it's the due diligence that a person does when they decide to buy a property. They can take that risk.
I think it's 1997. It changed from one house per 40,000 to one house per 80,000.
The houses that are there now would be a.
Correct. But we didn't require the yield of one house per 80,000 until
I mean,
19.
most likely, yes, they're all along the same waterway, and they're roughly the same size.
Right.
It would not be obscene yet.
No, and it's not pristine wetland that somebody's asking.
That's really, I would say.
Right.
The provisions kind of.
Right.
Also, when any of this happens, you have. Similar.
Okay, I'm going to move on to the second variance, which is for the FAR, section 6865 and 6850A. Floor area ratio permitted is 25% max. We are at 26.2%.
That's
Very de minimis, less than 5%. Thank you.
condensed.
Okay, okay. Fill in a flood zone, what we're all been waiting to talk about. So the property is in an AE5 zone. The property is designed to provide a stormwater system to capture and recharge 100% of the site's area, as well as to provide an additional 20% capacity based on our leaching galleys being set 1 foot above groundwater. It's unique that this property is capturing and containing all the stormwater in lawn areas. Typical residential development is just your roof and your pervious surfaces. So all of our, impervious surfaces. So all of our pervious surfaces are also being captured and stored. The system consists of pipe leaders from roof drains of the main house and cabana tied directly to the leaching galleys. The driveway also provides a trench drain, as well as it being a pervious stone condition, and that trench drain is tied to leaching galleys. The patio and the lawn areas will sheet flow to stone swales that are set a few inches below the top of the wall. There's small landscape walls that border the south, north, and west sides of the property. No more than 18 inches in height, and the stone section will consist of a perforated pipe with filter fabric that sits in a stone section that's also wrapped in a filter fabric, which will allow for storage of stormwater as well as infiltration and recharge back into the ground. They're looking for you to not impound is my feeling. So they're looking for you to not interrupt the flow of groundwater. Sure. It's not that huge of a number. You can look at, it's about 10 inches across the entire property. So if you were to, uniformly put an amount of soil on top, it'd be about 10 inches across the property. The reason it's necessary is in order for us to install the sanitary system and the drainage system, we do need to raise some of these lawn areas up a little bit. So the sanitary. So, in my professional opinion, this is the only town that has that code ordinance. And the code ordinance is 0. It's not, there's no number given in the code. So I could understand if okay. Okay. That's fine.
So if we can't just jettison and say, no. Trying to help you, and us. Why
Okay. So there's always going to be earthwork that's necessary to develop a property. And so at the end of the day, as an engineer, we try to balance our earthwork as much as we can. We don't want to remove a lot of material from the site. We don't want to bring in a lot of material from the site. We want to try to balance it. So the material that we excavate out of the earth for us to put in our drainage structures or our drainage system or sanitary or the foundation of our home becomes a stockpile. That stockpile of material can then be used as fill to then adjust some of those finished grades. So that's where we can balance our earthwork. It's never a perfect balance. There's never going to be a site that's not going to bring, one truck in or one truck out. That's just not the reality of construction. So again, I don't know why the code was developed, but I think that it's to prevent mounds. It's to prevent that somebody isn't putting their house severely higher than a flood elevation and building it up to a certain extent where everybody around, where they're up on a hill. That's basically, I think, where the town is going with that code section. They don't want. Correct. Now, well, and most all of these properties that are in flood zones have high groundwater conditions, which is why they're in a flood zone. So that's your challenge. You need to be 1 to 2 foot above sanitary. You need to be 2 foot above groundwater. So you're forcing.
He gets the fill to accomplish the objective.
But I think what's more, yeah. So just one other point out, and I won't, I can give you the breakdown of where all the fill goes if that's, but it's drainage, it's sanitary. So we did have some conversations with our neighbor because, to what we were just discussing, the concern is that we're not creating a problem for our neighbors, that we're not cheating our stormwater off onto their properties. And so through those conversations, we described the way our drainage system is going to function, how the water will get captured into these stone swales. We did agree to increase the amount of storage that we're going to provide along there. So this is the property to our south. So we're going to increase the volume that we're able to store in that stone swale to be able to handle at least a 4-inch rain. The town code is to handle 2 inches. Plus we had our 20% additional, so it's about 2.4, but we're going to give them 4 inches of storage along that area. Sure.
I want to know, has the
A different set of circumstances, but there was a number close to that. That house never got built.
Oh, okay.
but different set of circumstances. It was up against an elevated property, so the architect argued that they had to bring in that much fill.
But the town
I was,
engineer think that this is doable, that it can be engineered in a way as to keep the water on the property?
Maybe I can help you with that, since the question was first to me. So I heard Nick say that Chris Polker seems to think that that number might come down a little bit. If you don't have any objection, I don't think the board doesn't want to give 739 square foot and then back the town engineer into that number. If he and you are going to continue to negotiate, which is probably going to be the future when this provision leaves the code, which is what I think will happen in the next several months, it would end up being you and the town engineer just negotiating to the best engineering practices. So are you pretty certain that there might be a resubmission, that the 739 number might come down?
no. Oh,
This is a conversation that I had briefly. It wasn't the one
yeah. Yeah, so
We make that number subject to their approval?
we can, but I would like to say that I've been working with Tanner on this application, and we've gone several rounds of revisions with the engineering department. And in my opinion, we have determined that this is the final number and this is the way it's being designed. So to my client, my client has gone through a long road and he's hoping he's near the end of it to move forward into the building department. So I'm not opposed to further conversations, but in a timely manner, we do need to resolve the issue. And
In your opinion, did Tanner agree with the 739?
100%. And I was before this board on KMM, which is 190 Bayport Avenue, and a variance was granted for over 900 cubic yards.
So in your opinion, if it's subject to town engineer's approval, which you think he's already approved, you would be okay with that?
Absolutely.
That
That's
seems
right.
reasonable.
Okay. And just to finish, so there were three things that we agreed to with the neighbor, and I just want to get them on the record for the neighbor's benefit. So I mentioned that we're going to store for a 4-inch rain. We're also going to extend the perforated pipe and stone detail to the full extent of the retaining wall. Right now, it stopped short along the east side. And we're also going to add cleanouts along that pipe for future maintenance. Cleanouts, like inspection ports, so that the system can be cleaned for maintenance.
And that's not indicated on the plan before.
And they're not. So the drawing will get updated to include that, and it will go back to Tanner in engineering. So there's going to be an opportunity for the engineering department to look at it again.
We're back to subject to engineering review and approval.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is there anyone else who would like to be heard in this application? The infamous neighbors?
God bless you.
The neighbors?
Nope, guess not.
No?
Because we believed that there was somebody present.
I'd like to submit the neighbor.
If we do vote to approve this application, I request that the town attorney's office specifically notes in the decision that this is not the creation of any new building area. This is not subdividing, creating new increased building density. This is an existing lot that has a history of being developed. It's not, like I said, the creation of a new lot, which is, we have had issues with in the past.
Also, that it would clearly be subject to the town engineer. Thank you, Joe.
Is there anything else you'd like?
No,
You have anything else?
no, we're fine.
Anything else?
No.
No, just grant it, it's fine.
I'll make
Go
a
get it.
motion to grant the application subject to engineering approval that we discussed during the presentation.
So just on that, we're gonna remove the 739 from the cubic yards?
I don't think so.
Or just leave it subject to?
Subject to. Yeah.
I think that makes sense.
It'll either
All
be
right.
that or less.
Okay.
Everything in the application is subject to further approval by engineer.
All in favor?
Aye.
Application is granted subject to the engineering department.
Thank you.
Okay. Application number 121-24, Golan 1 LLC. Permission to leave one-story addition 5 by 19.5 having side yard of 9.5 feet instead of required 14 feet, expanding nonconforming use of two-family dwelling by less than 25%, and to leave shed 8.4 by 8.6, having rear yard of 0.6 feet instead of required 2 feet, and shed 12.5 by 16.6, having rear yard of 1 foot instead of required 4 feet. Residence B District, south side of Lakeview Avenue, 125 feet east of First Avenue, Bay Shore.
Good evening. William Scott Patone, 406 Saddle Rock Road, Holbrook, New York, 11741, for Go All in One LLC. Good evening. So we're looking to keep the two sheds in the backyard. They're on concrete slabs. And just keep the little bump out in the kitchen area in the back, it was just kind of closed off squared off the house, which is existing, and we're looking to keep it that way. Yeah, the little bump out in the back of the kitchen, it was kind of indented. It was there when he bought the house. So we're just, since we had a fire damage building permit and we are doing a CC and everything, we want to get everything legal. Yeah, it's already there. Yes, yes, ma'am.
So squaring off threw us off a little bit.
It's not squared off.
Right, okay. I understand.
And the two-family,
So it's a legal two-family, not a family use only restricted. It's legal by age and affidavits according to the CO. So actually, the 2023 aerial shows the bump out on the first story.
right.
So you said it was a kitchen expansion?
Yes.
So as you know, the board is authorized to grant up to a 25% expansion on gross floor area of a non-conforming use. So zoning determined that this bump out is less than a 25% expansion and send it to you for special exception.
Planning, any comments?
It's a fairly
Any issue on the other variances? Does anyone else would like to be heard in this application? All in favor?
Aye.
Application is granted.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm going to change these glasses because I'm getting tired. Application number 21-24, adjourned from January 16, 2024, 6878 River Road LLC. Permission to leave site obstructions within driveway site triangles where prohibited. Business 3 District, west side of River Road, 207.41 feet north of Browns River Road, Sayville.
Members of the board, Mr. Chairman, Guy W. Germano, 4250 Veterans Memorial Highway, Holbrook, New York, for the applicant. So we're here today. We previously submitted photographs of the fence. That's the gate. That's the subject of this application. I have an additional copy here. Previously, in August of 2019, this board granted permission to leave the fence on the property, essentially on the property line within 15 feet of the street. That prior application was, this is a chain link fence, as you can see. Prior application was approved August 27, 2019. When we were here before, we adjourned meeting and subsequently we withdrew half the first part of our application, compensating fill issue. And so all that's left is the chain link gate, which as you can see is not an obstruction. You can see right through it. Yes, I mean, yes, because we were able to, our engineer, Mr. Tom Dixon, was able to balance the site. Well, it says it has to, it says it's an obstruction. In one section, they talk about chain link fences are exempt from certain kinds of fence restrictions, 6 feet high, 8 feet high, as long as you can see through them, 75%. Yes.
There's not big slats in this, you know. So
It's just what you see there.
I don't see, I haven't seen the picture of it.
Well, the pictures, I just submitted them. Okay, and I submitted them, I submitted a set at the last hearing as well. Yeah. We removed them from the site triangle. Yeah, we didn't address that because we're removing it.
Let me just ask you a question. In the fence, you know, it's not the in fence in the side triangle, they're storing things. These look like.
Well, that's not, those are going to be, those are all going to be removed from the site, from that part of the site.
Because my question is, if we didn't grant this, we couldn't have the fence there, we wouldn't have the gas fence. Now we granted, and oh, good, we can store things there. How do we ensure that they don't essentially create a site plan with things in the fence? I mean, right here in the picture, it's.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we haven't gotten site plan approval yet of our, and we're removing that from that part of the area. No.
By erecting the chain link fence, then you can use it for storage.
Within the site triangle. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. All right?
There's only this tiny little.
Hang on, wait.
All of this is out of the site triangle.
No, but I'm not going to argue for this. We're going to get it. You're going to move that.
Yeah, that's one thing.
If we grant some the variance for building in by our action. Yeah, but by.
They agree to limited condition.
Yeah, we won't store anything inside the site triangle.
I'm going to send one of the board members.
They can?
I'm calling you. If I go there at 3 in the morning, Don, I see it.
I'll give you a tour. What
What
the hell? As long as it's in the summer.
Patrick Fitzsimmons, 5 Green Tree Drive, Oakdale, New York. And as I go past there all the time, FITZSIMMONS. There's a lot of storage there. There's a lot of propane. There's a lot of summer stuff. In the summertime, when they have movies being shot over the island, that boat area is filled with tractor trailer trucks, which are there for the duration of the film shoots. They do store things, not for a long period of time, but yes. Yeah.
The storage is another issue. We didn't want storage in the site.
Okay.
For safety reasons.
Right.
Whether or not the storage, that's code enforcement.
Yeah. And it's on my 5-mile run, so it's there.
So you guys it every day.
Yep.
You run 5 miles every day?
Everyone should. It's good for you. All righty. Thank you.
My name's Patrick Jacobiti, 371 Foster Avenue, Sayville. Yep, Jacobitti. And I understand that this part of the variance was maintained, but the second part was withdrawn. And from what I understand, the engineer decided that he can balance out the property for any flooding that may occur. And is that something that we can see, the drainage plan, how they're planning on addressing any of the water on that particular piece of property when they do parking? So none of this is valid. We just got to wait for the next one.
I'm sure you should, either talk to
Mhm.
or alternatively, he's got his engineer.
Okay, so the engineering will have all that information. Okay. Yep, that's what I figured. I just wanted to make sure that everything was where it's supposed to be.
Would you speak to the gentleman for a minute? No, no.
Yeah, because right now, yeah, okay, we can talk later. All right, thank you.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board, Frank McAlonan, MC, capital ALONAN, 21 Browns River Road, Sayville. I'm a neighbor. I object. This is a safety issue.
What, the site triangle?
I'm sorry?
The site triangle, safety issue?
In terms of the sight lines, the sight lines,
The site triangle.
right. Okay, so the legislative intent, which I read in code 68101, business 3, which this is, sites are most appropriately located on arterial highways at signalized intersections and reasonably located away from single-family dwellings and schools. This is a heavily trafficked area in the summer. We've got children on bikes, we've got runners. We don't know the reason for the site obstructions or their different, current or future uses, and it's vague, the request. Without specifics, that could be misused. So I oppose it and ask that the request be denied. And after reading Code 68404, it does not appear safe to leave site obstructions, especially in this waterfront area with, as I said, freight operation, tractor trailers moving in and out. And there are no sidewalks on Browns River Road, but I'm sorry, you wanted to say? Yeah. Yeah.
They're talking about a chain link fence across the gate. It's a nuance, they're talking about chain link fence across the entrance.
Yeah,
It's a
if I could
sliding fence.
Chain link fence. It's
I'm sorry, sir.
It's a chain link fence. It's see.
Right.
In the photograph. So, but we were concerned that they put something in that site triangle that obstructs. I'm sure the next door neighbor, if you see anything that obstructs that triangle, in that chain link fence, down, we're going to make it a committee.
Yeah.
Have to keep it clear.
This isn't the site triangle. That's my backyard and the last storm, over 3 feet of water in it. They pulled their request for more fill into this area. Yeah. But it's important that you see what we're up against in terms of flooding down there. And as we've reached a tipping point, there's no ability for the land, whether it has wicks or anything else, to okay. All right, so I'll move back to that. An emphasis on safety is needed. Not everyone drives into a Stein parking lot or takes a taxi or a van. All sides of Block 5 are frequented with pedestrians coming. I understand it's just a chain link fence. Our experience with the Steins and the entities is they do what they want, ask for forgiveness after, they change things. And as I say, we can't have any more incursions or compromises. I just wish it was different. Also, the complex French drain development with all the different.
Sorry, I
Okay.
think you're maybe misunderstanding what, all of those requests having to do with fill, drainage, runoff, that's all taken away from us. All we're talking about right now is fence. And the chain link fence and whether,
Exiting the parking.
which has probably been there since
Yeah.
longer than I've been alive.
We're opposed based on our previous experience. I've dealt with this family for 3 generations, over 50 years. And they pretty much do what they want and things get changed. And I'm just extremely leery of,
But this is no issue. And to your point where you say they do what they want, I don't know if that's true or not, but they are here legalizing.
they are what?
They're here to legalize.
Yeah.
They're coming to the table saying, okay, let's make this legal. So to your point, I don't know if they historically do whatever they want or don't, but they're here in good faith to try to legalize what's there. How it got there, I don't know.
Yeah.
But we're here to talk about whether the fence can stay or not.
Yeah. Our position is please deny this. I don't want to keep you longer, but it's difficult for us down there. Thank you.
Good evening.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I know.
I don't know why you were here at 6:15.
Christina usually does them, but she's gonna have to do later. But we're gonna adjust this now. I'm gonna rethink this.
Okay, yeah, because now you saw.
This doesn't involve Phil.
No, or floodplains. I have no knowledge.
When they called and said, we want to be last, I was like, alrighty then.
No, I know. I'll have to.
Application number 122-24, Janelle Wilson, permission to leave deck having side yard of 0.6 feet instead of required 4 feet, fence having front yard of 1.5 feet instead of required 8 feet, and driveway having width of 21 feet instead of permitted 18 feet. Residential redevelopment district, southeast corner of McKinney Avenue and O'Kane Street, Central Islip.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. Diana Laspisa with Morano Expediting Services, 2938 Hempstead Turnpike, Suite 212, Levittown, New York, 11756, here on behalf of the property owner, Janelle Wilson. Sorry. Yeah, L-A, S is in Sam, P is in Peter, S is in Sam, A. We're here before you requesting permission to maintain a deck, a driveway, and a 6-foot fence. My client had purchased the home in 2017, at which time all structures had pre-existed. The rear deck, just to clarify, it is an on-grade concrete patio. This home is connected to 3 other units, all having mirroring patios. So it is our belief that this was done when the property was developed. In regards to the driveway, my client, again, did not alter the driveway in any way. It did pre-exist. McKinney Street does happen to be a very well-traveled through street, as it is the only street in this neighborhood to cross over a span of 11 streets. So it is heavily trafficked. There's a lot of heavy traffic on it, and the additional on-site parking is beneficial to the safety of my client. She has 2 cars. The property did have a 6-foot stockade fence in the exact same location as the PVC fence before you. After she purchased the home, about a year or 2 later, there was some damage and a heavy wind where the stockade fence some sections had fallen down. It was already in disrepair, so my client was forced to replace the fence. And she did opt to improve it with a 6-foot PVC, but the height and placement never changed. The 1.5-foot setback is measured at its closest point, and if you measure from the edge of pavement, it is 11 feet. It varies along O'Kane Street so technically 1.5 to the property line, but in the southeast corner or northeast corner is 6.2 feet. So it does vary inward to their property. But again, that's to the property line, to the street. Visually, it does appear to comply. Mrs. Wilson had no knowledge of the illegality of these improvements until September of 2023. In June of 2023, the home had suffered a kitchen fire, and we had filed an application with the building department to remediate and repair the dwelling. At that time, it was brought to our attention that it did need to be legalized. These other items did have to be legalized. They did allow us to proceed with obtaining the permit because it is time sensitive, but we did have to file a compliance permit. So that is what brings us before you. What was that? Okay. I do have other photos. I don't know which photos I submitted. Well, I will tell you that every other home at this intersection, north, south, east, west, has the 6-foot fence in the, so that's an old picture. These pictures are actually taken yesterday. So I'm going to submit these up. No, there's a dumpster in the driveway now. It gets better. So this I'm going to mark. Yes, and that's the old fence. So actually, it is in the same location, yes. And so I'm going to submit, these ones are marked subject parcel. So these are all their parcel. These other photos are of all corners of this intersection, and everybody has the 6-foot PVC fence in the same location. I don't have that information. No, possibly, very, very likely.
Well, I appreciate photos, kind of irrelevant.
I understand. It doesn't set precedent, but it does show conformity. But I will say this fence, like I said, is 1.5 along the front. But then if you look in the back where it says PVC 6.2 west, so it does vary in.
The 6.2 west is from the rear. Not from.
Oh, wait, you're right. It does vary, and it's just not the 6.2 west. Hold on. Let me scale it out for you. You're right. It's been a little bit of a long day. So it's actually only varies in 3 feet. All right, so forget it.
What's the cost for it?
You can see this is a row of attached townhomes. So, Dan, in 2017, I think we started allowing the fences on the second front yard if a lot in every other district besides RRD had 11,250 or less. So as not to be confiscatory, we allowed the fences to go to the second front yard property line. There was no such correction in RRD. Zoning districts, and this would not be considered a single-family residence.
What happens is that exception, it's in the fences part of the code. The reason why this is 88 cars would normally be 10 feet is that it's specific. This zoning will have 8 feet requirement. So when the exception was created in the fences walls section of the code, that was an
So
oversight.
translate that, what does that mean?
Yeah, dumb it up.
Yeah, right.
If it was a single family home, we have no problem with this. Lots of.
In the zoning.
If it was in any other single family.
The lot's 4,224.
District has its own fence code, which is
a little bit more relaxed than.
Normally,
Well-
it'd be more of a.
It's surrounded by single-family residential homes. It's not, which I have an aerial too that I could submit. It's kind of zoomed out. But there's only maybe a combination of 4 or 5 other attached townhouses. It's really the neighborhood is single-family residences.
Like grandma.
No, no, I understand.
Single-family home, it's a townhouse.
This is over by, north of the courthouse.
Oh, just the corner lots in the RRD. The RRD is pretty big. It's a whole redevelopment district, but it is something that the board is, we're not even seeing them on corner lots anymore if it's 11,250 or less. This one's less than 6,000 square feet.
It's 4,224 is the square, correct. That's the lot area, 4,224 square feet.
Somebody had an application who said their house was.
Planning, you have no concerns with this planning? All right. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to grant the application.
A second. All in favor? Aye. Application is granted. There we go.
So now the others can come in and get their variances on those other 4 corners.
Oh. Well, they won't be corners, though. I won't tell them. All right, thank you. Have a good night. No.
Bring in the other 3.
We have 12 accessory apartments to renew for a period of 3 years.
Take a motion. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Okay. And we also have one request for withdrawal, application 628-23, Nicholas Ialucci. We just needed a motion and a second to withdraw that
Take a
application.
motion. Motion. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That's a wrap.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Are we off camera?